They called him the Boy King. But to the ancients he was more than a child. He was the son of the gods, the living Horus, the Pharaoh Tutankhamun. His kingdom was drenched in sunlight, yet his reign was shrouded in shadows. He inherited a broken empire, one torn by heresy, betrayal, and blood. And though he sat on the golden throne of Egypt, his heart was fragile, his destiny cursed. He ruled for barely a decade. Some said he was too young to understand power. Others whispered that he understood it all too well, that he tried to undo the sins of his father, the heretic Akhenaten, who had defied the gods themselves. Tutankhamun restored the temples, rebuilt the idols, and returned Egypt to the worship of Ammonius, the hidden god. But in doing so he awoke something ancient, something buried in the silence of the tombs. In his final years strange things began to happen. His servants spoke of whispers in the dark halls of the palace, voices like the hiss of sand in the wind. His body weakened, plagued by fevers and fainting spells. When he died at 19, no one dared speak the cause aloud. Some said poison. Some said the gods had punished him for the sins of his bloodline. And so they entombed him in gold, in a chamber deep beneath the Valley of the Kings, sealing his name with spells and curses that even time would fear to touch. For more than 3,000 years, Tutankhamun slept in silence. Empires rose and fell. Pharaohs became myths. And then one day in the year 1922, men with shovels and lanterns came looking for him. The desert was patient. It had buried his secret well. The man who led them was named Howard Carter, an archaeologist obsessed with one dream, to find the lost tomb of the Boy King. For years, he dug in the Valley of the Kings and found nothing but dust and disappointment. His patron, Lord Carnarvon, was running out of money and patience. Carter begged for one final season. Just one more year, he said. And so, in November of 1922, under the burning Egyptian sun, they began to dig again. What they found would shake the world. Beneath the rubble and broken stones, Carter's men uncovered a staircase cut into the bedrock. It led down into darkness, into history itself. As the team cleared the steps, they reached a sealed doorway covered in hieroglyphs. And there, above the royal seal, were words no one wanted to read aloud. Death shall come on swift wings to him who disturbs the peace of the king. Carter brushed the dust away, his heart pounding. He called for Carnarvon. Together they broke the seal. A rush of ancient air escaped, the breath of a world that had been asleep for 30 centuries. By the light of a candle, Carter peered inside and saw treasures glinting in the dark, gold, statues, chariots, the gleam of eternity itself. When asked what he saw, he whispered one sentence that became legend. Yes, wonderful things. But outside, the desert wind began to howl. And far above the tomb, a falcon, the sacred bird of Horus, circled once in the crimson sky, then vanished. Within weeks, the curse began to stir. The first to die was Lord Carnarvon. He had been bitten on the cheek by a mosquito, a small wound that became infected. Not long after the tomb was opened, he fell ill with fever and delirium. At precisely the moment he died in Cairo, the lights in the city went out. His dog, back in England, howled once and dropped dead. The newspapers called it the curse of the Pharaoh. Scientists called it coincidence. But in the silent chambers of the tomb, the air felt heavier. The workers refused to go back in at night. They said they heard voices, footsteps, and the faint echo of laughter, like a child playing in the dark. Tutankhamun's revenge had begun. The world called it superstition. But the desert keeps its promises. After Lord Carnarvon's death, the whispers spread faster than the sandstorms. Journalists from London to New York printed stories of a curse that struck down anyone who dared disturb the tomb of the Boy King. Some laughed. Others crossed themselves in fear. But then, one by one, those who had stood in the tomb began to fall. George J. Gould, the American financier who visited the excavation, died suddenly of a fever. Prince Ali Kamel Fahmy Bey of Egypt, who had dined with Carnarvon, was shot dead by his wife in a hotel suite in London. Arthur Mace, one of Carter's assistants, collapsed from exhaustion and never woke again. Within a few years, more than a dozen people connected to the tomb were gone, each death stranger than the last. The Egyptian villagers refused to approach the site. They said the tomb glowed at night. Some claimed to see shadows moving behind the sealed doors. Others heard a child's laughter echoing through the valley, faint but unmistakable. Howard Carter, ever the rationalist, dismissed it all. There is no curse, he told the press. Only coincidence. But his eyes betrayed him. He began to live alone, surrounded by relics. The treasures of the tomb haunted his dreams, the golden mask, the statues, the boy's silent face frozen in eternal calm. Sometimes he said he felt watched. His servants found him sitting awake through the night, staring at nothing, candlelight flickering on his face. When his pet canary was killed by a cobra, Egypt's symbol of royalty, even he fell silent for days. The scientists who examined the tomb found something stranger still. Inside, the air was thick and stale, untouched for over 3,000 years. When they scraped the walls, they discovered traces of ancient mold, spores deadly enough to poison the lungs. Was that the curse? A microscopic vengeance waiting through time? Or was there something older, darker, written not in science but in the language of the gods? In Cairo, the priest said that Tutankhamun had been buried with a spell of protection. It was not meant to punish but to guard, to keep his soul undisturbed. By opening the tomb, Carter had broken the bridge between worlds. The pharaoh's Ka, his eternal spirit, was no longer at rest. As years passed, those who survived began to change. Carter aged faster. His hands shook. He grew reclusive, suspicious of everyone. Visitors spoke of a strange energy around him, as if the desert itself had followed him home. He never married. He rarely smiled. He kept the artifacts locked in crates, refusing to let anyone near them. When asked if he regretted opening the tomb, he said quietly, "No man may call himself fortunate who disturbs the dead." The irony was cruel. He had discovered the greatest archaeological treasure of all time, and found only silence waiting inside. By the time Howard Carter died in 1939, many who had once worked with him were long gone. But on the day of his funeral, witnesses swore they saw a falcon circling above his grave, the same sacred bird said to guard the soul of the pharaoh. No one spoke, but all of them thought the same thing: the king was watching. The treasures of Tutankhamun now rest in museums, behind glass and light. Millions gaze upon his golden mask, the perfect face of a boy frozen in eternity. They see beauty, not warning. They forget that the gold was meant not for glory but for protection. Every scarab, every amulet, every carving in that tomb was a barrier, a wall between the living and the dead. And we, in our hunger to touch the past, broke it. They say the curse sleeps now, tamed by time and science. But sometimes, when the lights flicker in the halls of the Cairo Museum, the guards whisper that they hear footsteps in the dark. Soft, measured, royal. As if a young king still walks among his treasures, guarding them, waiting for the day the desert calls his name again. Because some thrones are not made of gold. Some thrones are made of silence and vengeance.